fellow babies. Welcome to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Hey, SIFTD's changed the rules a bit. It's free if you want to get everything you can possibly get on SIFTD except original content. This is original content. So you don't get this for free unless you wait a week and you watch it on YouTube. If you want to join SIFTD, it's all available to you, including original content, for the extraordinarily low price of $50 a year. $50 or $49.99. I can never remember. $50 a year. Yeah, okay, 50. About the same cost as a PlayStation Network membership. I think that's $49.99 though. Anyway, $50 a year gets you original content. It also will fund more original content. I want to thank the SIFTD community. You made this show possible by joining into a crowdfunding effort so that Shane could buy his equipment back. So we are talking on that equipment right now. Thank you guys for coming in. If you aren't a SIFTD premium member at $50 a year, you're going to get original content like the Pachter Factor a week later on YouTube. So if you're watching this for free, great. You can still join SIFTD for free, get access to the community, the forums. If you're an asshole, we don't want you. So if you're a dick, don't bother. Nobody's interested in your opinion. But if you're a kind person who has thoughtful commentary, welcome to the SIFTD community. We'd love to have you. And again, it's free. You don't get the original content on time. You get it a week later. Some of it, you get my stuff a week later. All right, with that, we're going to go to questions. Our first question this week from SIFTD, from the website, from Kevin, which means you're one of the original Gangsta members, because it's not Kevin X123, it's Kevin only. In your opinion, which E3 2016 press conference and individual announcements were the best? Boy, good question. I think it's interesting how the feedback from the press conferences went. People seem to just drool over the Sony press conference, and they seem to really not like the Xbox press conference. And I thought they were actually pretty close, pretty equal, and probably it's a difference in perspective. But I think that when you work through what makes a press conference good and what makes one bad, Sony did something that I thought was very smart. They thought about who the audience was, and the audience is you guys. So the audience is people who care about games. And so, as far as I can recall, there were only two people on stage in the Sony press conference. You had Sean Layden, who's the president of Sony Computer Entertainment in the Americas. I think they changed their name actually, but it used to be SEEA. So Sean runs the Americas, and then you had Andy House, who is the president of PlayStation. He's like the big man from Japan, and that was it. So we didn't have community managers or whoever runs PlayStation Network or head of the studios or any game developers. We just had two guys who weren't up very much, and then you had a ton of games, and it was just game after game after game after game. And I think consumers like that. I think consumers are watching these press conferences to learn about games. There were good game reveals. You know, we got, is it called Days Gone? Days Gone? Yeah. So we got that as a reveal. We got the Kojima game, which escapes me. It had an odd name, something Rising.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding, not Rising. It's Stranding, not Standing, but Stranding. Which, by the way, I'm watching it and I'm like, there's Norman Reedus. And people around me are going, who's that? So, see, old guy. I watch Walking Dead, so I know who Norman Reedus is. Yeah, so we got some game reveals. We got a lot of gameplay footage. It just looked really good. It was actually a relatively short press conference, but it came across great. Universally loved by gamers because it focused on games. You compare and contrast that with the Microsoft press conference, and Microsoft put people up that matter to Xbox. So you had a bunch of people up on stage. You know, Phil Spencer, to his credit, spent very little time on stage. He came out in the beginning and really only, I think, once after that. But because there were a lot of people on stage, I think that was, probably something it took away from the consumer experience as opposed to the press, the investor interest, because those people actually are interested in who the people are who make the stuff happen and whether they're credible. So I thought that their press conference was great. Consumers didn't like it. So again, consumers don't want to see talking heads. They want to see game footage. So on balance, yeah, I get it. I get why people say that Sony beat Microsoft. I thought that, the EA press conference was meh. I mean, it was okay, but I didn't see anything that I didn't know already. The highlight for me was seeing Titanfall gameplay, and it looked amazing. I was not as impressed with Battlefield. I mean, it was like a different trailer, but it's the same old stuff. I thought that the Ubisoft press conference started out as a frickin' disaster. A bunch of dancing fruit. I don't even know what it was. There was like a gorilla and some dude playing a big old fake cardboard guitar. I didn't get it at all. And yet I read some online reviews saying, oh my God, it started out with this amazing Just Dance number. Again, I thought that was just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So you're asking me my opinion. I hate that shit. I am totally not a fan of Aisha Tyler. I think she's really cute. I bet she does play games, but honestly, she sounds so fake when she talks about Girl Wood and how she plays every game. And it's like, I don't really believe it. And maybe that's just me being old and sexist, but I don't believe she actually has played all these games. And I thought that there was way too much talk. So I hated the Ubisoft press conference until they got to actually showing its games. And oh my God, For Honor looks amazing. Like, what a difference in a year. A year ago, it looked like a stupid sword fighting game. This year, it looks like a movie. Like, I was really impressed with that. I thought Ghost Recon Wildlands, oh my God, amazing. Now, I would say my criticism of their show from the time they started showing great games was the gameplay footage was too long. I mean, it was like 10 or 12 minutes per game. But again, I know you guys as consumers don't like people talking. I thought South Park looked hilarious, and I thought bringing out the South Park creators was just brilliant, and those guys were hilarious. So, I like that press conference. So if I had to say of the four between Sony, Microsoft, EA, and Ubisoft, I would say Ubisoft won. Even though my single least favorite moment of the entire show was the dance number for Just Dance. And my second least favorite moment was Aisha Tyler as moderator, because I just find her not to be genuine. And I hope she doesn't hate me for that. I still think she's a funny comedian. She's a very well-spoken, attractive person. I just don't think she comes across as a gamer. And yet, notwithstanding that two of my least favorite moments of all of E3 happened during Ubisoft, they recovered nicely because their games look great. Our next question from SIFTD, from Deus Zero. Doesn't announcing the Scorpio and the Xbox One S at the same time hurt Microsoft's ability to sell the S? Look, the S and Scorpio are different boxes for different purposes. If I had to bet, I'd say that the S is at $299 going to be at least $100 cheaper than the Scorpio, probably $2. So if I had to bet, I'd say that Scorpio is going to come in at $499. If I had to bet, I'd say Scorpio specs, which we don't know, are going to be designed to optimize Oculus and Vive. So I think that Microsoft's making a box, which they nominally call 4K. Oculus and Vive run at 2.6 megapixel, 1K, so 1080p is I hate the term K. 1080p is 2 megapixel. Oculus and Vive run at 2.6. 4K is 8 megapixel. Too many numbers, I know. But it's 4 times 1080p, so 4 times 2 is 8. So Oculus and Vive do not run at 4K. There's no question the box has a 4K processor, so does this camera. And if you're watching me right now on a 1080p TV, you're not watching 4K. You're watching 1K. If you're watching me on a 4K TV through an internet connection that is coming through full 4K, you probably are watching me 4K. That's to both of you out there. There's hardly anybody who's got that. So my point is, Microsoft calls it 4K. It's probably going to ultimately support 4K. I think Oculus and Vive will ultimately be 4K. I think they're future-proofing, but I don't think you buy that box just to play games. You buy that box to play VR. And the truth is, both Microsoft and Sony have said this. Their next generation consoles, which I'm going to call the Xbox 1.5 and the PlayStation 4.5, are fully backward compatible. That means that all games designed for those platforms must be playable on Xbox One and or PlayStation 4. Now I think, and I'm just making a guess here, I think this is how we're going to see console cycles from now on. So the Xbox 1.5, PS 4.5 are coming, 3.5 to 4 years after the last console, but as I said, fully backward compatible. 3 years later, 2020, you'll get the Xbox 2, and it will play any game that is playable on the Xbox 1.5. It won't play Xbox One games, but then developers can develop to the Xbox 1.5 standard, which is 4K. Same with PS 4.5. When the PS5 comes out in 2020, all the games can be designed for the PS 4.5. So your entire library of games isn't going to be obsolete, but Grand Theft Auto 5 will be. It won't work anymore. So games that come out for Xbox 1.5, people will start designing better games. You can still play your old games, but the new games will only work on 1.5 and 2 or 4.5 and 5. That's how I think it's going to happen. So the answer to your question, does that hurt sales of Xbox One S? Keep in mind, Xbox One S is replacing the Xbox One. There isn't an Xbox One anymore. This is like the iPhone 6S. You can't buy an iPhone 6 anymore. You get a new phone, you get an iPhone 6S. So people who don't yet have an Xbox, who want one, which could be you PlayStation owners who want to play Gears of War this holiday, you'll buy an Xbox One S. Could be you Wii U owners who don't want to get an NX or want to get a next generation console to go with your NX. You buy the Xbox One S. I agree it's a better deal maybe to wait a year and buy the Xbox 1.5. But the truth is, if it's $500, you can get an Xbox One S for $299. A lot of people will do that. And so, yeah, it could hurt sales. I don't think it's necessarily going to. And frankly, I think Microsoft made the announcement mostly because Sony had already come out and acknowledged that there was going to be a PlayStation Neo. So Microsoft wanted to let people know we've got something coming too. Again, without knowing the price, I don't think you should care. It's like asking, last September, knowing that the iPhone 7 is coming out in September of 16, won't that hurt sales of the 6S? And the answer is no, it didn't. I don't think most people care. I still have TVs that are, 10 years old in my house. I think, I bought a TV in my living room downstairs in 2006. Still watch it. Sharp Aquas, awesome TV. Paid $3,000 for it. It's probably about $500 now for a 46-inch, but it works. I'm happy. From SIFTD, our next question comes from Shelburne. Does a good or bad E3 press conference have a significant impact on stock prices directly or indirectly through games and mainstream media or the public through Twitter, Facebook, etc.? If so, what's the biggest drop and rise you can remember? I mean, the easy answer is not really. It depends. I mean, if the E3 press conference has a reveal of Grand Theft Auto 5, then yes, it has an impact and the stock goes up. But typically they don't do that. I mean, they did announce Grand Theft Auto 5 for next-gen consoles at E3 in 2014, and I don't think Take-Two stock went up more than 2 or 3%, but that's the kind of move that you get. That's enough. I mean, if you can make 2% a day in any stock, you're making 700% a year, you'd probably be pretty happy. But that's about as big as it gets. I think probably the worst, I can't remember anybody ever just saying something really lame at a press conference and making their stock go down. There's something in the stock market called sell the news. So if it's widely expected that something's going to be announced at E3 and then it is in fact announced, it's typically priced into the stock before the announcement. And then when the announcement happens, people don't see the stock go up and they sell the stock. So they sell it on the news because they're not getting the reaction they hoped. So stocks tend to actually go down on news, even if the news is good, unless the news is a complete surprise. So again, Sony confirmed Neo, a week before E3, so it was already priced in the stock. Microsoft surprised people with Scorpio. People didn't know that was coming, so that was moderately good news. But as an earlier question pointed out, I think the market worries that maybe they won't ever sell Xbox One S. So Microsoft stock didn't move much on that. Ubisoft stock was down E3 week and then up right after. They just move all over the place. Stuff like Brexit or Trump becoming president, they'll have a bigger impact on the market than the E3 press conference. So no, I think investors like to go to E3 because they get access to management and they actually get to watch, these guys perform in front of a crowd, and it just makes them feel better that the management knows what they're doing. But no. And I can't even say if Twitter and Facebook have much of an impact other than, people love to post. I think Twitter's funny. I can't imagine Twitter actually having an impact on anything. Twitter is just a means to get to the news quicker. So there's nothing really special about it. In the internet era, everything happens real time. So, stocks will react literally seconds after companies make statements any place because somebody knows about it because you can get access immediately. All right. So we have a question from Twitter from @PoorJ1. If you were Nintendo's president, would you have shown the NX at E3 if it was still slated to release in March of 17? In retrospect, I suppose it's hard to pick on poor Nintendo for not showing it because Sony, acknowledged the Neo and didn't show it. So Nintendo's acknowledged the NX and didn't show it. Maybe this is the new paradigm. I'd say that if you have a design for a console and you are ready to manufacture, probably the minimum amount of time before you start fabricating the console and launch, minimum, is 5 or 6 months before you start manufacture. So arguably, if they're going to launch in March, they have to show it by either September or October. If they don't get it shown by September, October, I'm skeptical that it'll launch in March. But the truth is, maybe they weren't ready. Maybe they haven't finished the final design spec. Maybe they're still hammering out some details. They probably figured out the CPU and GPU, which is why you can give dev kits out, because dev kits essentially are just PCs with a CPU and a GPU. But they probably haven't yet figured out all the feature sets and controller and how they're going to do it. So I bet that's why they didn't show it. And I think that might be true of Neo as well, that Sony's not going to launch that thing in the next 6 months. They're probably going to launch the thing in March. I don't think Nintendo is playing games. I don't think that they're screwing around at all. Once they know exactly what they're doing and they're ready to commit to production of the device, they'll announce it. Once they send the specs to whoever, Foxconn or whoever is going to assemble all this stuff, they will absolutely announce their console. So they're not screwing around. They just didn't show it at E3 because they weren't ready. I think the bigger issue with the NX is going to be software. And, I'm sure some of you saw that I'm pretty optimistic about Zelda being a system seller for NX. I missed it. This is not Nintendo's fault at all, but I missed the announcement on Zelda months ago that it was going to be an NX launch title. So I just thought it was a Wii U game only, and I didn't realize it was playable on the NX. Now that's smart. So Nintendo clearly, if you look at their guidance for the Wii U, they're talking about 800,000 Wii U units this year. So they're essentially discontinuing it. That's clear then that they expect the NX to replace the Wii U. And yes, you might buy Zelda on the Wii U, but if the NX is announced before Zelda comes out, why wouldn't you just throw your Wii U away? Go trade it in at GameStop, pre-order an NX and wait for the NX version, because it'll probably be beautiful and play just as well. So I think that's going to be a system seller for the NX. That's one of the big problems with the Wii U, I think, is that it just did not have compelling software other than Smash Brothers. We just hadn't gotten a Zelda game. I also think a big problem with the Wii U is that the gamepad is just kind of clunky and hard to use and short battery life, and just everything about it doesn't work. We'll see if the NX has that. Some people are saying the gamepad will let you take it into another room and continue to play the game as if you were playing on a tablet. That would be cool. Personally, old school, I'd rather just have a freaking controller. But we'll see what Nintendo does. In any case, if Zelda's on it, it's going to sell better than if Zelda's not on it. Knowing that Zelda's on it, I think it's going to sell pretty well. I would say come back to me in September, and if we haven't got an announcement by then, it's not coming out in March. If you get an announcement by September, you'll have an NX in March. My fellow babies, joining me on the Pachter Factor on YouTube a week late or in real time on SIFTD.net for only $50 a year. You know, Shane went through some tough times. Some asshole broke his door down, stole all his stuff. You know, they stole all of his retro games still in shrink wrap, all his PS2 and N64 and GameCube games. I think he even had some Xbox games. You know, by the way, I'm pretty sure I have, what was the name of the 3DO baseball game? Something baseball, not 3DO baseball. All-Star Baseball, Major League All-Star Baseball. I think I have the one with Kurt Schilling on it from 2004 when he had the bloody sock. I think I have that in my room right there. Yeah, I've got some shrink-wrapped old cool retro games too. I pretty much keep all like the last game that any company that went out of business sold. So I've got a 3DO game, I've got an Acclaim game, I've got an Atari game, I've got an Interplay game. Yeah, I'm really good. Anyway, so listen, I know you guys can't all afford to send $50 in and join SIFTD.net, but if you have any cool retro games that are in shrink wrap, send it to Shane. Okay, he'll put his address down here because he's got to build his collection back. He lost 300 classic games, and he uses them for background in some of his shoots. So, you know, you guys could help out just by sending any old game. Even if you find yourself in a garage sale and you see a game that looks really cool, I think he'll even take Atari 2600 cartridges, whatever you got. And again, if you can't afford $50, we get it. That's why we're on YouTube a week later. You're getting this a week later, go for it. If you are a paying member of SIFTD.net, you can criticize anything I say. If you're not, keep your mouth shut. Nobody cares what you have to say. Thanks for joining us.